Now into talking about things. I watched and played multiple things recently. I want to talk about Sinners, which is now on streaming. I missed it in theaters. I heard it was good. I wasn't planning on watching it because no one was going to put it in front of my face. So, I mean, why would I watch anything if someone didn't put it in front of my face? But for the 4th of July, we went over to our friend's house, and before we barbecued, we watched Sinners. Now on streaming. Is Sinners good? Yeah, check that shit out. That's a really good movie. I'm going to get into a bit of a spoiler discussion. I'm going to say I would recommend it. It is a very, let's see. It is a, I think you can imagine that there is a if you don't know anything about the movie, you can probably imagine just from the poster or the trailers or whatever, I don't even remember seeing a trailer, that there is some kind of a supernatural twist, which is absolutely true. They hint towards that in the beginning, that something crazy supernatural happens. So it's not really a spoiler. But it is a drama with a it's a historical drama. It takes place in the Jim Crow South, I believe, in the 1930s. In what? Oh God, is it Louisiana? I think it's Louisiana or Mississippi. I think it's Mississippi. And so Mississippi in the 1930s, and concerning obvious race relations. It starts as this drama with this kind of theme about morality following you around, your deeds following you around, and then that is driven home by a very intense supernatural twist, which, because I felt it was so thematically consistent, did not feel weird at all. It felt like this makes sense to tell the kind of story that they're telling. Yeah, that's my spoiler-free review. Skip to me talking about Superman later, because I'm gonna talk about how fucking crazy that last half was. Wow, what a cool-ass movie. I think that one of my favorite things that it did was actually with the colors. I am someone who, you can probably tell from my videos, that I like some creative color correction. I appreciate it when a director and an editor decide to get extremely, I guess I'd call it impressionist, very stylized, perhaps, in choice of color. And usually that only manifests in an overall color grading to the film, or you might see it in, I think of Spider-Verse, which does really intense things with colors, but that is an animated movie and it already has like a really intense bending the visuals kind of thing going on. Sinners is a live action movie where they are not afraid to get, genuinely, like sometimes it looks like my videos. The level of contrast and saturation and intensity of the colors. There's a scene where they're inside of the juke, the barn kind of club bar that they've built, and inside of the juke, the colors are almost like red and black. Not because of any... the lighting inside is definitely warm, but it is cranked up in post to an absurd degree. The shadows are so dark, the reds are so intense. You can see the speckling of the footage where the colors are just, because the contrast is so high between the yellow and red and black, and I think like a touch of green that's in there, and the colors just kind of speckling in and out, pixels on the screen, because they're so close. There's absolutely no gradient. There's so little gradient of colors going on. And then they cut to the characters are standing at the doorway and they cut outside, and it's colored so cold and blue and chill, and there is such a strong distinction between inside and outside, which it's a vampire movie that uses very classical rules for vampires. That's a really strong visual motif. Inside, outside have extremely different feels to them. Some of the other stuff that they did with aspect ratio was really neat. I'm aware that most films switch aspect ratio a little bit. It tends to be in ways where you don't really notice it that much. But this one does it in a way where it's noticeable, but as part of the style. There are some really, really cool scenes. Switching from I was joking about the letterboxes coming in and out being like, oh, the gameplay started. Because the action scenes kind of start up and, oh, the gameplay has started. And then the letterboxes come back in and I go, okay, the characters are safe now. We're in the cutscene. We're in the cutscene world. You don't have to worry about fucking up. Fucking up this fight. Other moments, there's a really cool scene. Oh my god, am I fucking bleeding? Son of a bitch. I have been getting random ass nosebleeds because of the goddamn weather. Don't want to get on my shirt. Alright. I'm just gonna leave it there. Okay. There's a napkin in my nose right now. I always keep napkins just off to the side. Oh my god. I hope those Sinners vampires aren't coming for my schnoz now. What was I talking about? Oh, there's a really, really cool... One of the coolest sequences in the movie is where the main character, Sammy... He's playing a song. And they establish that there are people who are able to tap into this otherworldly energy through the power of music. There's a very strong power given to music. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just significant. He's able to tap into something greater and more profound that reaches through time, and he's a guitarist. This is his music is his passion, and he finally gets the chance to play in front of a big audience at the Juke, and they're feeling it, and he's feeling it. He gets into this rhythm, and he starts playing these is he playing the blues, I guess, and suddenly he is manifesting. Or it's very abstract. It just kind of it's blurring the border between the literal, what the people in the scene might be literally seeing, and what they are feeling. He's tapping into something that extends into the past and the future. And I literally I didn't know that they were going to go as hard as to be like, there is a not Jimi Hendrix rock and roller 60s rock and roller who just appears, and then there's all musicians from all these different time periods, like black musicians, and then there's also Asian people in the crowd. So there's these different types of they're Chinese, so different traditional Chinese styles of dance and music and theater and stuff, and they're there too. And the whole idea is that his music is so powerful that it's letting these people tap into this this energy and this sort of this spirit that passes between generations of their cultures. Music is a big part of the film. It plays a role multiple times as exemplifying a lot of different different cultures, namely African American and Irish is the other one. The first vampire is Irish, and there's this very creepy scene where he's turned tons and tons of people into vampires now. And they look outside the juke where they're still safe inside. But they're doing this like Irish fairy circle with this Irish jig song. And there's this I really like the things that I liked the parallel between, I guess I should do I get into the, I'll talk about this stuff first. You can figure it out via context. I liked the parallels between African Americans and Irish people that they made in this movie that I thought was very interesting. I'd never considered it before. But their relations to Christianity. There are vampires in the film, but I think vampires are typically considered, they come from a sort of Christian culture. There's, the crosses, the symbol of God or whatever. Here the vampires are more of a not necessarily Christian thing. There's a woman in the group who practices some kind of, I don't want to say voodoo. Like, I guess voodoo. Let's just say it's like an old, from a traditional from Africa religious belief. And she is familiar with vampires, and she knows, and like the garlic thing is apparently universal. So the vampires themselves aren't necessarily a Christian thing. And there's a parallel drawn between these two groups of people, blacks and Irish, who both had Christianity kind of put upon them. The Irish had their own religions and their own culture, and then the British spread that to them. Similarly, the people who were brought over to America as slaves from Africa had their own African religions and spirituality and cultural beliefs and all that. And then that was, I don't want to say replaced. It's also not fair entirely to say that all of this, like, some people learned about Christianity and they were like, this fucking awesome. Christianity was very appealing actually to a lot of slaves, because the idea of heaven and a payoff and salvation and stuff was very appealing to many slaves. It was also something that was sort of given to them via cultural osmosis. I'm actually not sure how common it was for slave owners to force their slaves to convert to Christianity or to follow Christian beliefs. I don't know how common that was. But it was given to them via cultural osmosis from their enslavers. And the vampires in the movie are kind of, becoming a vampire is seen as, it kind of reminded me of going to Nurgle in 40K, where to many people it seems like a horrible existence, but to them it's very comforting. Becoming a vampire is, the way that they describe it, it's a little bit hive-mindy. And there's a familial aspect to being a vampire that is very pleasant and warm and inviting, and they feel like they finally have, a connection or a people with someone, right? However, ultimately, that path is not the right one, which is for the reasons being the other theme in the film, which is basically things following you around. The main premise of the movie is that it takes place in Mississippi in the 30s, and the main character is a preacher's son named Sammy. I fucking love the way the guy says it. The Irish vampire says, he goes, Sammy. And Sammy's cousins come back from Chicago. They are nicknamed Smoke and Stack, the Smokestack twins, and they dress like Team Fortress 2. That was the first thing I said when they showed up, because one dresses in red and the other in blue, and I leaned over to Kat and I went, Team Fortress 2. And they have got a bunch of money and a bunch of stuff, and they're real high rollers. They kind of don't really explain where they got it from in Chicago or how. It's implied that it was via shady means. But they've got it, they're throwing it around, and everyone's like, holy shit, they're so cool. Sammy, of course, is completely enamored by them because they're less stuffy than his uptight preacher father, who wants him to just stay in the church and you know, do the church life. They are these kind of rebels. They're very empowered. They go and travel. They get into stuff. They've got connections. They have a lot of agency over their lives, and he really looks up to them for that. They're doing what they want to do, and they like him. They kind of take him under their wing. And they've decided they're going to come back and use the money that they got to start a juke, which is like this. Just like a club, but it's set up in a barn and something like that. They play music and have drinks and serve food and stuff. It's like a community bar sort of thing. And specifically for the mainly black community, probably some other minorities could get in there, but something they want to build something independent of the white establishment. They want to build their own money, right? They've come into town to do that. And so they're like getting the land. They're getting the land from this, from the landowner at the start of the movie. And he's like, what are you two planning on doing with this land? And I leaned over to Kat and I said, build a fortress. I think we're going to make 2 fortresses for a team. The running theme of the movie is that your sins follow you around. It's kind of karmic in that way, which I think is also interesting because it's a little bit detached from a lot of Christian morality, and it is a lot more adjacent to other stuff. It doesn't necessarily reference any one in particular, but it reminded me a lot of the idea of good and bad karma. Smoke and Stack have clearly made they've done a lot of bad things to get their money, and it's kind of blood money, and that ultimately comes back in this sort of cosmic way at them. Sammy is caught in the middle of this, and he's at a crossroads. He's a young man. He can do whatever he wants. He's got all these opportunities for him, waiting for him. He's this very promising, incredible musician, and he wants to be like them. What I thought was really interesting is the movie's use of sex scenes. I think that there's 3 sex scenes. 3 sex scenes in the movie, or one of them is like implied. It kind of happens off camera. You see sort of the beginning of it. But there's 3 instances of sex in the movie. And each one of them is important for the contrast that they create. Each one of the brothers independently has sex. Everything takes place on one day. It's a crazy day. Both of the brothers have sex on the same day. One of them, Smoke, goes back to his I don't know if she's his wife, but she's the mother of his child who died. They had a baby who died. You're not sure if it was during pregnancy or shortly after birth or whatever, but the baby died. He goes back to visit her. They have kind of a tense conversation. They're mad at each other. There's a lot of spite and anger, but ultimately, deep down, they both love each other, and the love has never really gone out. And the scene culminates in them making up, which is represented by them having sex together. Later that night, I should mention, as a pretext, Stack, the other brother, Red, is when he comes back, they're like he's at the train station with Sammy. He's trying to hire a guy to play music. And an old flame of his, what is her name? Haley Steinfeld. An old flame of his confronts him, and he just pretends not to know her. He just pretends not to know her. And so immediately you have Smoke has a lot of issues with his former love, or sort of current love, right? His lady. But he goes and he makes some sort of amends with her, and ultimately acknowledges that the love that they have for each other, that they had for their child, there's something kind of transcendental about their love for each other. Stack is just running away from it. So two very different scenes, or two very different relationships. At that same train station, in that same scene, Sammy meets this lady who is married, who he then flirts with. He's being a bad guy. He's being a bad boy. He's doing something pretty clearly immoral. He knows that she's married. He chooses to flirt with her. And then later that night at the juke, they have sex. Obviously, she is somewhat culpable, for cheating on her husband, but Sammy is the main character, so we're kind of seeing these are the choices that he's making. He's still throat's getting dry. He still is making a very unethical decision. Also, during speaking of color, before we get to the third sex scene, speaking of color, you want to talk about Sammy. He starts the movie in these very white clothes. The color white obviously is associated with purity. It's also the color of his father's parish, and when they go inside, everyone's wearing white. Later that night at the juke, he switched into these more gray tones. And then, well, we'll get to that. The big vampire outbreak happens when this Irish vampire guy and these two clan members that he vampired up come to the juke. They aren't let in this very tense scene that kind of foreshadows the rule about they have to be invited inside, like traditional vampires. Haley Steinfeld goes out to talk to them and maybe get some cash, see what they're up to, because who was it? One of the brothers, I think Stack or Smoke, one of them is more like, well, we could let them in, and the other one's like, no, we don't want to. You don't want to. Don't even create the possibility that a white person could come in here and a problem could start, and then everyone is going to get fucking lynched. just don't even mess with it. Don't even get into it. Let's separate our business. So she goes out. She gets vampired up. She comes in and she starts coming on hard to Stack. And suddenly this thing that he was running from is now coming on to him, takes him into the other room, and they're starting to have sex, assumedly. And then, oh God, what the fuck is happening? She's clawed through his throat and is drinking his blood. So you have these three different scenes, right? Smoke Smoke's sex scene is meant to be the culmination and show that his love for his, I'll just say wife, is kind of transcendental, and it's always there, and it's true and enduring. You have Sammy, who is kind of at this crossroads where he's messing around with unethical behavior and kind of deciding who he's making certain moral decisions about his character. And then Stack, who ran away from what he did. He ran away from his relationship with Haley Steinfeld's character and refuses to face it and take responsibility for breaking her heart and all that. And that she literally comes back to kill him and turn him into a vampire. And Smoke Wife tells him, she explains the vampire lore. She is up on the supernatural stuff. And she explains that in this movie's version of vampires are souls that are tethered to the earth. They cannot move on. They cannot move on. They are spirits that have seemingly perpetual unfinished business. The only way that they can only be destroyed by like the sunlight or the holy stuff, right? The certain, like the garlic and I think silver. Yeah, silver as well in this movie. So there's this big, pretty obvious metaphor for the choices you make building up and following you around in a kind of karmic way. It's coming back. It's literally coming back to bite him in the neck, not in the ass, in the neck. It'd probably be very hard to bite someone in the ass and turn them into a vampire. There's not a lot of... Are there veins? There's probably some veins. I think it would be very difficult. It would be a very slow process. This triggers the actual oh fuck vampires part of the movie, where it turns into a vampire survival movie, which is really cool. I haven't really seen a film like this, at least with vampires. They are literally playing COD Zombies, but with vampires. They're messing with their emotions because some of them are their former loved ones. I should mention that they like make the very stupid decision to send everybody out before they really know how that they're vampires, and then all those people get vamped up, including their loved ones, and this is very testing to their morality and all that. Stack eventually he turns fully into a vampire. And they do this kind of cool, again, with the colors and the color theory. Smoke and Stack are this red and blue. Stack becomes a vampire and switches to wearing a black vest. Just a black vest with nothing underneath. And Smoke, after getting all the blood on him, takes... his coat and his overshirt off, and now he's just wearing like a white tank top, a pure white tank top, to I guess represent humanity and inhumanity between them. Cool stuff. And also with Sammy going from white to gray, as he gets kind of bloodied up as the night goes on, his clothes get stained and darkened, and with the color correction of the movie, begin to look even darker and darker and darker as he's going further. He's kind of delving further and further and being literally covered in sin. And ultimately making the decision. The way that he kills Irish Vampire, the way he kills Isaac Brock is so good. He smashes the guitar over his head. I thought he was going to turn it into a stake and like stab him through the chest or something. But he takes the guitar and smashes it over his head in such a way that the silver disc at the, I don't know what it's called. It's in the guitar. It's a big silver disc in the belly of the guitar gets embedded in his head. Which is great. Great way to kill a vampire. Super cool. And then ultimately Sammy, Smoke and Sammy are the only survivors. Everyone fucking dies. he stumbles back home and to his father, and his father gives he grabs him, and he basically tells him he's still gripping the neck of the guitar, and his father says, put it down. Which, first of all, amazing meme potential of his father holding him and crying and saying, put the guitar down. Put it down, son. Amazing. out of context, amazing. And Sammy decides not to put it down, and instead to use his music for good, for a positive energy, which I thought was interesting. He has this, Christian opinion of his power, his ability. And he decides to take another path and actually say, I have this gift and I'm going to use it for good. Flash forward to very cool ending. Very cool. Was it post credits? It was sort of an epilogue. Very cool epilogue of him as an old man getting a visitor. A certain visitor. Also, just really badass scene at the end when Smoke realizes. So here, the other thing is, what was it? They found, I forget what the specific plot little thing was, but basically he finds out that no matter what, they were going to get lynched by the KKK. And they were basically doomed from the start. And he decides to... I had totally forgotten. They drop this little detail that both brothers had fought in World War I. And he just fucking... He goes Rambo on all these clan members at the end, which is fucking crazy. It's great. He's got like a sniper and a machine gun and like it's really good. It's a good ass scene. Great way to send off the character in this like insane. Literally, I was like, oh my god, the gameplay's starting. Gameplay starts. Really good ass movie. Good ass movie. I've spoiled it. I've spoiled it enough. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. Very cool. I loved the visual style. Great performances. Really cool stuff with music. I love that scene in the barn with the music where the letterboxing literally goes in and out following the zoom of the camera. Oh no, it's this great abstract, non-literal visual of the barn, the roof of the barn burning away and you just see to reveal the night sky above, and as it burns away, the letterboxes leave. They start like squeezing out of the screen to make it literally feel like there's this sense of freedom. Oh my god. And then that's when it pans back down and you're seeing this connection between all the generations and the boundaries are being broken down literally, and very clever, really cool stylistic stuff. Congrats, Ryan Coogler. We watched it with a friend of ours who's a big Ryan Coogler fan, and I was like, oh my god, the aspect ratio changed. She's like, don't question him. Do not question Ryan Coogler. And I went, okay. And then by the end of the movie, I was like, I'm so sorry I ever doubted you, Ryan Coogler.